two types.
Okay.
Yeah, protein code and RNA genome.
No, they're not two types. They are the two components of retrovirus. Okay. So retrovirus,
Okay.
every virus contains two things. Virus is very simple a system. Viruses are not living outside the host because they only have a protein coat, okay, and a genetic material inside. Simple. No cytoplasm, no cell organelles, nothing. Just a naked genetic material sitting inside a protein coat, covered by a protein coat for protection. Simple. So a retrovirus is the virus which has a protein coat. Protein coat is common for all viruses, whether they're retro, rhino, or any kind of viruses. But there are two types of viruses on the basis of their genome. Either they can have DNA as a genome or they can have RNA as a genome. Now the RNA was a primitive molecule as a genetic material, right? We studied the RNA world hypothesis in evolution, remember? I think you were not, were you there when we were doing evolution? Reem?
No, sir.
No? Okay, but you must have studied in your school that there was a hypothesis called RNA world hypothesis, that RNA evolved first as the genetic material followed by the DNA later on. So these viruses are very, they evolved very early on. So that's why they are called retro. They are old school viruses. Just like retro movies, retro songs, right? They are retro viruses. Yes. So they have a RNA genome, not a DNA genome, which causes some problem to us when we try to tackle them. Yes. So what happens when some virus has a RNA genome? Continue.
RNA genome and protein code.
So what is the benefit? What they can do, which other DNA genome viruses cannot do? It's written in front of your eyes.
Reverse transcription.
Yes, they are capable of doing reverse transcription, which means making DNA from RNA, going ulta. Okay, normally
then
RNA is made
RNA
from DNA.
DNA, then protein.
Exactly. Okay. So yes, continue.
We can
next.
detect HIV by few symptoms. People can, catch it even though they didn't really do anything, any kind of syringe or any kind of sexual contact. It can happen due to their mother. If their mother were infected, the baby can get it. And by passing through needles and syringes,
yes,
and by having sexual contact with multiple partners in which our body fluids are transferred. So we should be aware of that. And
so what is the problem with multiple partners here? Because that I think was not clear in the last class. I just used the word that one should avoid sexual contact or sexual activity with multiple partners at the same time. Why? What's the problem? If we know that all the
body
partners
fluids, they get mixed up.
Then what's the problem with body fluids mixing? We know that all the partners are healthy, let's say. Still, it's not advisable. Why?
Because we're not sure if they have any kind of problem.
But let's say we are sure. Let's say we test it. Still, it's not advisable to have multiple sexual partners at the same time. And it's also advisable to use condoms. Why? Because exchange of body fluids, gives opportunity from one system to another. When body fluids exchange, body fluids always contain some viruses, right? Bacteria, viruses, they are always all around us. Yes or no? And multiple exchanges happening also give way to mutations in viruses. Remember in evolution chapter, I also told you that simpler organisms evolve the fastest. And the example is COVID. Can you see COVID? COVID has evolved so fast in just last 2.5 years. It just came, the first case was reported in December 2019, correct? And we have not even reached December of 2022. So it's less than 3 years, and we have so many variants of COVID causing different kind of symptoms in different regions, and we are dealing all of them with multiple vaccines and booster shots, etc., etc. So we know that viruses are simple, which gives them this advantage of mutating faster. So it's not advisable because multiple body fluid exchanging between multiple partners can give rise to mutated viruses very fast. Okay. So just being sure is not enough. Okay, everyone.
Yes, sir.
Yes, then we did the mechanism. Yes, this is where I need some explanation quickly. Team, did you
First,
understood this? Yeah,
transcription. Sort of, sir, yeah.
yeah. Tell me. I'll help you. Don't worry.
First, transcription happens in which
That happens inside the cell.
a segment of DNA.
Okay. So this side,
Retrovirus.
I just told you about what is the central dogma and what route retroviruses follow. But remember, retroviruses can only, or any virus can only do anything when it enters the cell. We have to start with how it enters. You are missing this whole chunk because this is the cell. What happens outside? How does it enter? How does it infect, let's say, the macrophages? So can you see? I told you, see, this is retrovirus. Let's say this is the HIV virus. It has a protein coat and RNA as the genetic material. When it infects a normal cell, it only sends or injects its genetic material, which is RNA inside. Yes?
Yeah.
And then what happens? What is the first thing that happens when a retrovirus injects RNA inside the cell?
Transcription.
Reverse transcription. Remember? You only told me above
Yeah.
that the only thing they are
Yeah,
capable of doing is reverse transcription. So they have injected RNA inside, so that RNA will be converted into what? A DNA. That's called reverse transcription. Is that clear, Reem?
Yes.
Very good. And then what happens? Continue.
After reverse transcription,
Yeah.
the virus
Produces a DNA. So viral RNA becomes viral DNA, let's say.
Yeah, after
Then,
reverse
yeah.
transcription.
Yes, then what happens? Can you see this step 3 here?
Yeah, the viral DNA incorporates into host genome.
Yes, it gets into our own DNA in the nucleus. And then what
Then the
happens?
new
I lost your voice for some time. Did everyone lost Reem's voice?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay.
Um,
Reem, yes, you're audible now.
then new RNA is produced. Due to that, new
How is the
viruses
new
are
RNA produced?
When the DNA incorporates into the host genome.
Through transcription.
And due to
Now,
transcription.
yes. And then what happens? This new RNA comes out in the cytoplasm. Millions of these new viruses are produced. How? Through translation. So you see, the virus left the protein coat outside, but again gets all the protein coat assembled because this RNA has the genetic information to make all these components again in the cell. So it basically uses our own machinery. Viruses are called hijackers because they hijack a cell, uses the cell's machinery to make their components, then assemble themselves into our own cells, and then release to infect other cells and do the same thing all over again. Is it clear?
Yes.
Yeah. And this replication in case of HIV is happening in macrophages. Mass replication. And I told you that this is the phase where replication is happening but there is no symptom. That's the latency phase for the HIV infection. It only becomes AIDS when these viral particles can now go and affect the helper cells and kill the helper cells. When they start killing the helper cells, immunity decreases and the symptoms of AIDS starts coming up. Is it clear, everyone? Yes. Very well. Okay. Next we started with, okay, we also did the diagnostic assay. I told you about ELISA, which is enzyme linked immunosorbent assay.
So why does it take a long time to detect HIV?
Detect it, it takes a long time. It can take a long time for the symptoms to appear. To detect, it does not take that long. Sometimes
Why,
it
sir?
Because, see, there are two things here. One is the macrophages, right? So
Yeah.
the HIV can attack the macrophage and start mass replication inside the macrophage, but they don't kill the macrophage. You understand?
So it's
They
still there.
just, yes. So macrophages are alive, these viruses are alive, and they are replicating. So there are millions of viruses in your body, but they are all silent, not doing any harm to you. So you will not have any symptoms. So you will not go to a doctor and not get yourself checked for HIV. That's why we cannot detect HIV when it is not showing a symptom. Does it make sense to you, Reem?
Yeah, sir.
Yes.
It is.
The symptoms will only start coming up when these viruses, after mass replication, will go and affect the helper T cells and kill the helper T cells. Because of the killing or the dying of helper T cells, the helper T cells helps, they are called helper because they helps the B cells to produce antibodies. Yes, in
Yes.
that process, T cells help the B cells. So and also T cells mediate the cell mediated immunity. Remember, all that understanding of self and non-self is coming from T cells. Graft rejection, organ transplant, we studied that. Remember, everyone? Yes. So if there are no T cells, their immune system is compromised, and because immune system is compromised, you start getting the symptoms. That's where you detect HIV. You go to the doctor asks your symptoms, and then he thinks, oh, it might be AIDS, so let's get tested for AIDS. That's where you do the ELISA for HIV. Does that answer your question, Reem?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So then we talked about treatment, and we talked that there is no cure, only prevention. There is only symptomatic treatment available, but no cure. And the best way to prevent is not allow these transmissions through any of this mode to happen. That's all you can do. Then we went on to cancer. We talked about cancer, right? We talked about tumors, benign, malignant, all right. You have written about all these.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So today we have to do. I also told you about detection and diagnosis in the last class.
Yes, sir.
X-ray, CT, MRI.
Yes, sir.
Radio labeled glucose. Okay. So today I'll talk about the causes and the treatment. What do we do in case of cancer? Or what are the causes of cancer? First is cancer can happen due to mutations in the cell or due to some changes. Mutations are genetic changes which transform a normal cell into cancerous cells. So first is through carcinogens. Carcinogens are substances that can induce cancer. So carcinogens can be of different types. They can be chemical carcinogen. In chemical carcinogen, you know a very famous example called nicotine, which is present in tobacco, right? Nicotine is a chemical in tobacco, cigarettes and tobacco, which causes cancer. It's a carcinogenic substance. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So these are the chemical agents. There can also be physical carcinogens, physical agents that can cause cancer.
UV rays.
Sorry?
UV
UV rays, yes. UV rays, ultraviolet rays. Ultraviolet radiation has the capability to damage DNA. Why it has the capability to damage DNA? Because they are non-ionizing radiations. Okay, even X-ray and gamma ray can affect your DNA, but we can modulate the X-ray and gamma rays strength or intensity for our use. So they often do X-ray for bone fractures. We should not unnecessarily keep doing X-rays all the time. We should only do X-rays when it's required. So oftentimes in case of doctors do not write CT scan very easily. You cannot just go for a regular checkup and get your CT scan done, the whole body scan, because it is done through waves. These are radiation waves where we use the gamma rays and X-rays, and these can harm your body. It is only when it is essential. Suppose someone has a brain tumor. Now a CT scan can help us know where the brain tumor is so that we can try to treat it or remove it. For that, you should go under CT scan because your life is anyways in danger. So you can take the risk of CT scan. Though CT scan is not a very good thing for your body, because you are just making the beam of radiation lights pass through your body. It's of course not good, right? For anything to penetrate your body. Make sense, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Now, why these rays? Why these radiations like X-rays and gamma rays? So write down, UV rays are non-ionizing. Whereas X-rays and gamma rays, this is the signal for gamma, are ionizing radiations. They ionize, they form ions, and they do not form ions. But still they have the capability to induce cancers by damaging the DNA. So they have so much of energy as waves that they can damage the DNA with that energy. They can break bonds between DNA. And your DNA gets damaged, and it can lead to neoplastic. I told you about cancer cells are called neoplastic. Did I tell you this?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So neoplastic means
Malignant cancer.
Yes, right. So physical factors can also do cancer. Okay. So chemical, physical, carcinogens can also be biological. What do you think? What do you mean by biological agents? There must be some living organisms that can cause cancer. Can you think of anything that can cause cancers? There are some viruses which are cancer causing. They are called cancer causing viruses. Basically what they do, they induce tumor which can become malignant. So these viruses are called oncoviruses, or oncogenic viruses. Oncovirus is also a right term. The word onco in biology means cancer. Oncogenic means cancer causing viruses. And these viruses transfer genes just like this, right? How do viruses infect? They transfer their gene inside the cell. The protein does not go in most cases. Is it clear, everyone?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay. So the cancer causing genes which are present in these viruses are called viral oncogenes. They have viral oncogenes. So when they transfer these genes into our system, these genes get activated and cause cancer in our system, the tissue which they infect. Apart from the chemical, physical, and biological reasons like these, our own body, our own cells, okay, have genes which are called cellular oncogenes. In our normal cells also, there are genes sitting like a time bomb, ticking like a time bomb, which if does not blast, you are fine. But all of us carry genes like, one example is BRCA1. This is a common gene in human. All of us have this gene, BRCA1. The name comes from BR for breast and CA for cancer. It was first identified in a breast cancer, so it's called breast cancer 1 gene. But it is a normal gene that sits in our cells, only it does not affects, it does not gets activated, or it does not cause harm to our body in general. Okay, so write down, even normal cells, they are called cellular oncogenes because they are present in the cell. They are not given by any virus or something, they are just present in our body. Cellular oncogenes. Now, my question to you is, why does our body carries a time bomb? Why do you have these genes which can cause cancer anytime? What is BRCA1 gene? So in women who have BRCA1 gene are more susceptible, okay, to cancers. So these genes are present. If you get a mutation in this gene by any reason, you get cancer. So why do we have these genes? Simple. People, what do you think? Alia, what do you think?
Maybe it is transferred from parents, like.
So why do our parents have those genes? Why do their
Because
parents had these genes? Why did their parents had these genes? Why humanity have this gene in general? Okay, let me ask you a different question. You all have phenyl in your house, right?
yes, sir.
Are they good substances or they are harmful substances?
Harmful?
Harmful, right? You all have inverters. We all have generators and inverters in our house as power backup.
Yes,
They contain acid.
yes, sir.
So why do we keep acids and phenyls in our house when we know that they are poisonous substances and harmful substances? Because they are useful to us. We use phenyl for cleaning purposes to get rid of other bacteria. Without the acids, our batteries will not work. Even our car batteries have acids, right? But
Yes, sir.
it's our, what do you say? We have no other option. So these genes are present in our body because they also play some important roles. You know what BRCA does? So BRCA is a gene that produces protein which helps in DNA repair. Whenever DNA gets damaged, these genes produce a protein to repair the DNA. So if UV radiation causes damage to your DNA, these genes can help in a repair. But if these genes get mutated, now can the repair happen now?
No, no.
So if these genes get mutated and your DNA repair cannot happen, then those cells become cancerous. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So just because we have these genes, they are more susceptible to mutations and we are susceptible to getting cancer. But if we do not have these genes, then also we cannot survive because these genes are important to carry out the function of DNA repair. Okay, our DNA gets damaged due to multiple reasons, not only by UV, but also during replication. There are chances that DNA damage is there due to chemicals which we get from food or otherwise, or through a bacterial infection or a viral infection. DNA can get damaged, so these repair it. So these are called cellular oncogenes. So write down, normal cells have genes called cellular oncogenes or proto-oncogenes. Proto means primitive or before. So these genes have capability to get mutated and cause cancers. Till the time they are normal, you are fine. But the moment they get mutated, you get cancer. So these are also a reason for cancer. Okay. So basically what is happening in cancer is simple. A normal cell is transforming into a neoplastic cancer cell, right? And this transformation is happening through carcinogens. Make sense, everyone?
So,
So this is cancer. Now, how to treat it? Detection we have done. Now let's say, if there, do you think there's a treatment?
kind of, yeah.
Yes, many people recover from cancer, right? If detected early, certain types of cancers can be treated. It also depends on where is the cancer. If the cancer is in some very crucial organs like let's say liver or kidney or lungs, it's very difficult, right? If the cancer is in blood, it again, blood cancer, if not treated if not diagnosed very early, becomes very difficult to be cured. If it's some tissue specific cancer, like in the head or in some other regions of the body, in the tongue or in the let's say it's a tongue cancer, then the only option is to remove the tongue or that part of the tongue and still the person can survive. Or it's in the cheek or in the mouth, oral cavity, because of chewing tobacco. Again, you understand? So there are various ways by which we can treat cancer if detected early. What do you think are the ways?
Chemotherapy.
What is this chemotherapy? These are just fancy terms. When we study science, you are right. If you write chemotherapy in your exam, you'll get full marks, no problem. But do you understand what is chemotherapy? So treatments. So you said, let's start with that only. Chemotherapy. Split the word. In biology, always split the word. What is the word chemo means? And what does the word therapy means?
Medicine, I think.
Chemo means chemicals. Simple.
Yeah,
And therapy means? Therapy means therapy. Treatment. Right? So a chemical treatment is done. Now, can you guess what are we doing in chemotherapy? Simple.
We are giving different kind of chemicals, like injecting them in the body
Okay. Why?
to defeat the cancer.
To defeat what? What is cancer? These cells which are growing rapidly,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Yes,
So
sir.
basically you are putting some chemical drugs in the body and you are expecting them to just in a targeted manner, and see, they can never be 100% specific. Okay. So they have some kind of specificity. Okay. Some of them are very specific for particular kind of tumors, like in the epithelium or in the mesodermal layer. So they are specific to killing these cells, but they are never 100% specific, and they also kill our own normal body cells, or they have side effects. So in chemotherapy, write down, chemical drugs are used or are injected to kill cancer cells. Okay, in a specific manner. in a specific manner. Now, as I told you, it can never be 100% specific. So chemotherapy has a lot of side effects. First is, apart from killing the tumor cells, they also start killing or hair follicles. The hair follicles start dying. So you lose hair, all the hair on the body, and go bald. When you are undergoing chemotherapy, losing hair is a very common side effect. So cancer patients often go bald. You understand? They lose all the body hairs because the hair follicles, they die and they are shed off. But after the treatment is done, when you are not under the effect of these chemotherapeutic drugs, it is possible for the hair to come back. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. But how severely it has affected, that also will come into play. Will you be able to get the same kind of hair, or will you be able to get the hair at all or not? It varies. But under the treatment, you lose hairs. Write down, chemotherapy has side effects. Such as hair loss, RBC loss, which causes anemia. Our RBCs also die. So these two are common chemotherapy loss. So you are also given iron supplements to make blood. What is the other way?
So surgeries.
Yes, another way is just remove the tumor, right? So you're right. Surgery or surgical removal of the tumor. So write down. Surgery is a common approach where the tumorous tissue mass is removed, where the tumorous tissue mass is removed. But do you think it is a good treatment? Can we rely on surgery? If I know, let's say, I 100% know by surety that this is the region which there is a tumor, and we can see it in the X-ray or the ultrasound or CT scan, and we also remove that part, that tumor. But should we be okay? Now the tumor is removed, everything is fine.
Even if it's removed, there's still a chance that it can come back.
Why? Why it can come back? We remove the tumor.
Because genes are still there.
Yes, one reason is yes, you have the genes still there, and if they are mutated, it can still come back, correct? But let's say it's not happening due to genes. Let's say it's happening due to physical reasons or chemical reasons, by nicotine or by UV radiation. So there your gene is normal, let's say. Then cancerous tumors can metastasize, right? They can spread through blood. So maybe when you removed one tumor, it already spread to another organ or to the same region nearby. Some cells migrated. Even if few cells migrated, they can again create a new tumor. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So surgery helps in eradicating the cancerous tumor mass, but it cannot be a short way to treat many cancers. Then what we can do apart from chemotherapy and surgery, there's something called radiotherapy. Have you heard of this term?
Yes, sir.
What happens in radiotherapy?
Radiation is given that the tumor mass is destroyed. Also, the normal tissues are also destroyed with that.
Some of the tissues die, but we take, so she's right. Alia is correct in saying that we use the power of radiation. Basically, laser is a type of radiation that can kill cells. You know that they always say that you should not point any laser to anyone's eye, because laser is a high intensity energy beam of light. It can kill, destroy a cell. Okay, so we use radiation, a lethal radiation, to kill the tumor cells, taking care that we do not lose normal tissues much, but some of the normal cells will also die with it. We cannot prevent, we cannot say that only the tumorous cells will die and no normal cell will die. We can take care that normal cells don't die to an extent where it starts affecting us, but radiotherapy also works. So write down, in radiotherapy, the cancerous tumor cells are irradiated lethally. Okay, and when you do this, you are taking care of normal cells in the body. Don't kill them. Some might get killed, we cannot avoid that, but majorly you should have to kill the tumor cells. So you just direct the beam only to the tumor, not to any other place. Mostly, most of the times, it is not just the one approach that we follow. Mostly in any kind of cancer treatment, all these three approaches are done in combination. So cancers are mostly treated by a combination of surgery, radiotherapy, and chemotherapy. Okay, chemotherapy, surgery, and radiotherapy. A combination is used. So just write down this line. And the interesting but also the problematic part of cancer is that these tissues have somehow developed mechanism to avoid the detection and destruction by the immune system. So our immune system, if a person has cancer, the immune system of the person cannot identify and detect cancer and kill it. Okay.
Yes,
So what to do in that case? If our immune system cannot detect and cannot kill cancer, can we use our immune system?
No.
We can so we realized why our immune system cannot detect it. So in this case, write down, cancer tumors can avoid detection and destruction by immune system. Cancer tumors can avoid detection and destruction by immune system. So we can give the patients something called alpha interferons. You have read this word interferon before also. Can you tell me where have you read interferons?
cytokine.
Sorry?
Cytokine, where the virus infected cells do not let.
Yes, right. So there it is used as a signal molecule, right? So alpha interferons are biological immune response modifiers. They are molecules that can modify your immune response. So patients are injected with alpha interferons. In some cases it works. So it is a biological immune response modifier. Write down, this activates the immune system. This activates the immune system to detect and destroy tumors. This activates the immune system to detect and destroy tumors. But it may or may not work to that extent. So also combination of other three are also used. So all these are the current treatments that we have to cancer. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Any doubts, people, in cancer?
No.
Anything you want to ask? So I'm giving, so that this brings us to the last part of the chapter, which is talking about drugs and alcohol abuse. So this is more like an important thing in the curriculum because all of you are adolescents, right? You are in an age where you should know. Education should give you a way to understand what's correct and what's not correct. This is the age where education about sexuality, sex, gender, and also different drugs and alcohol and substances should be given so that you know you can better make decisions which are informed and knowledge driven decisions, and also affects your health. Okay, so in human health and diseases we are going to deal with what are the various drugs which are commonly abused and are present around us, and for example alcohol, which is very readily available, how you should not abuse it. Okay, so these drugs are used for many things. They have good effects as well, but they have bad effects as well. So abusing anything leads to bad effects. So before going to drugs and its abuse, anything that you have to ask about immune system, diseases, health in general? Any doubts? So I'm giving you 2 minutes. Just go through 2-3 minutes. Go through the chapter. Just skim over it. Look at certain parts, subparts, and let me know if you have any doubt in any part or you want me to repeat something. So I'll take questions. I'll stop for questions here for 2 minutes. Go through, okay? You're going through your notes, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Cool. I'll give you 2-3 minutes in peace and then I'll begin. You can ask your questions anytime. I'm here only. Any doubts? Anyone? No doubts? No one has any doubts? So when you say no, I'll assume that you have understood everything. Okay. Okay, cool. So let's start. Okay, tell me, what do we mean by drugs? What are drugs? Are they good things? Are they bad things?
Using it correctly, it can be a good thing, a beneficial thing, but if we
Which is a good drug?
not a good drug, like it is used in medicine to
Yeah, of course. So in a medicine, it is a good drug, right? A paracetamol is a good drug, let's say, because it helps us relieve fever, right? But if anything, basically, see, drug is simply the word given to chemical substances that has the potential to be used in therapy. Therapeutic chemicals are called drugs. If it is a chemical, like let's say, which is not used in chemicals, like for example, let's say any other chemical. Name any chemical. Like benzene is a chemical, right? It's a general chemical which we read about, a cyclic ring structure in chemistry. Okay, benzene as such, it's just a chemical. But if we use benzene to make something which can be used in therapy, like benzodiazepine tranquilizers, which are given in the case of many mental disorders or anxiety, depression related issues, so then it becomes a drug to be used in therapy. Make sense? So drugs are basically chemicals which are used for therapeutic reasons. Now these drugs have some effects. Most of the time these effects are also on our along with our physiology, it also affects our mental state, okay, or our emotional state, like how we feel different on certain drugs. By taking certain drugs, we feel relieved, sometimes we feel elated, sometimes we feel relaxed, calm. So all these are different kind of drugs. Sleeping pills are also drugs, right? They help you put in a sleep. If you are unable to sleep due to a disease or due to pain or due to any other condition, if you take sleeping pill which is prescribed by a doctor, of course it has to be prescribed by a doctor. If it is prescribed, they also prescribe the dosage, they also prescribe when to take it. Then it can help you go into a sleep, which will help your body to heal, or some symptoms to you feel relieved from. But if someone misuses sleeping pills, okay, then it can be harmful to that person. So it's very important to know, especially in this age, which things we should never abuse and what are the side effects. So drugs and alcohol and abuse of it is rising, you know, in the recent times it is rising, and majorly it's rising among the youth, because youths are very, you know, young people like me and you. We are very energetic, we are we like to live life on the edge, we are unapologetic about living life as wild and free. So we do not hesitate in experimenting, okay, but sometimes we do not know the side effects, and that is the real cause of concern, because it can have many long-term side effects. Okay, so proper education and guidance and information is very important, so that you can understand what is a healthy lifestyle and what is not a healthy lifestyle. Okay, so the most commonly used drugs, can you name some drugs or chemicals which are most commonly abused around yourself? What do you see people abusing as? I see nicotine as the most common, like in tobacco, cigarette, right? A very common abuse drug is nicotine, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, right. So what does nicotine do? We have already talked about nicotine a little bit. All these drugs, basically, the harmful effect, one of the common effects is over a time, if you keep abusing it, your system becomes dependent on it. Then leaving this becomes a difficult task. So it's not like you are abusing and any given day you can just decide, okay, from now onwards I will not use it, and you just do not. You can change your eating habits. It's not that easy. You have cravings, you have withdrawal symptoms. So this is what people don't know, how severe it can be or what could be the side effect on your body, physiology, mental state, and how difficult it is to leave before they start it. So if everyone is given proper information and education beforehand, you can take better decisions, right? That we should never use, never abuse or use these drugs. Now, nicotine is a cancerous substance, as we have already talked, right? Here, it's a chemical carcinogen, nicotine. So it's a sure thing. And on every cigarette and tobacco packet, you get these warnings that these can cause cancer, right? So that's one way. But many other drugs, which are even more potent and harmful, which are used, are one is opioids, and they are often abused because people think that most of these drugs are obtained from plants. So they are plant based. So they think, oh, these are just plant based natural things. How can they be harmful? Right? They're just helping us. You understand?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, but that's not true. So opioids are one class of the drugs. Cannabinoids, which comes from cannabis, commonly known as marijuana. You know about marijuana? Cannabis sativa? People smoke. The very common name is weed. People smoke weed, if not nicotine. Okay, which is even worse. Cannabinoids and alkaloids, commonly known as coke. So they are called coke alkaloids. So these are the most common ones which are abused, and they are obtained from either flowering plants like plants or from fungi. Write down: obtained from plants and fungus or fungi. So they're easy to get. Even nicotine is easy to get, tobacco. Let me tell you, technically, if you see, tobacco is the least harmful, but it causes cancer. So you can think that if these are more harmful than tobacco, they can cause more severe issues, right? So let's talk about opioids first. Write down opioids. Just write down certain points. I will just tell you about these and dictate you. Anyone have heard of the drug opioids? It comes from a plant which has a common name matching with it. It's called opium or poppy. Have you heard of the name poppy, opium? Anyone?
Opium.
Poppy. Yes, what's poppy? Poppy plant.
It's a flower, right?
Sorry, come again, Alia. Your voice is breaking. Can you?
I think it's a flower. It's kind of flower.
Yes, it's a flowering plant. Yes, correct. So it's extracted. So basically, write down opioids are different. All classes, a group of drugs, okay, which bind. So in our nervous system and in our digestive system, in the gastrointestinal system, GIT, in the nervous system and in the digestive system, we have receptors, okay, which specifically bind to opioids. They are called opioid receptors. Write down, opioids bind to opioid receptors in the central nervous system, which is the brain and the spinal cord, and the digestive system, which is the gastrointestinal tract. Okay. So you heard of the morphine. Let me take first opium. So opium, as I said, it binds to opioid receptors. Okay. Opioids binds to opioid receptor in central nervous system and gastrointestinal tract, GIT. One class of opioid is morphine. Anyone has heard of this word, morphine?
Painkiller?
Yes, morphine was used as painkiller, still used as painkiller in many cases, but morphine was a potent painkiller. Okay. In earlier times, it was used a lot as a painkiller, but people started understanding its side effects. Of course, it has side effects. So morphine is mostly used for therapeutic or surgical processes. It has been used from very early time. So people figured out that there is a plant called opium poppy. Opium poppy is a flowering plant which has two things. The flower, the seeds of the flower are also used to make drug, and they have structures which has some latex coming out of it, the buds. And if you extract that latex from the bud, that contains morphine. So juice of poppy or poppy milk. In very early times, poppy milk was used as a painkiller, or to put any person who is in pain, who has lost a limb, or due to infection you have cut any finger or anything. So earlier, if there is an infection in the hand, even today, if you cannot get rid of an infection, it is advised to cut that limb, right, to make the person survive. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
So there is a lot of pain. So now we have synthetic painkillers which we have synthesized in the lab, and which are not derived from poppy. But earlier, naturally poppy is a painkiller, a very potent painkiller. So the milk of poppy was given in some concentration to that patient. If you give more, the patient might also die and go into a very deep coma or brain state where you die. But morphine was one such. It is used as potent painkiller. But people started changing chemically. They started doing experiments with morphine. So if a morphine is, you do acetylation of morphine, which simply means you add a acetyl group. I hope you know in chemistry you have studied a acetyl group. Acetone, acetyl.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So if you add an acetyl group to a morphine, so acetylation of morphine gives rise to something called diacetylmorphine. You add two acetyl groups, diacetylmorphine. Now this morphine can be made into small crystals, crystal powder. And this is a drug that people take for its effects. So it is white, odorless, and a crystalline, bitter crystalline compound, crystal powder. It is also known as smack. Okay, so people misuse this smack. It's a drug which is misused. Okay. So what it's done is, it's also commonly known as heroin. You must have heard the name heroin, right?
Yes, sir.
Heroin. Okay. If you put E here, that heroine is the actress, but heroin is a drug. Now heroin, basically what it does is, let me write here, why people abuse it is because it has a slow down effect. It is a depressant. Right on. It is a depressant, and as you know, it affects on our central nervous system. It makes everything slow down. So your CNS, your brain feels like everything has just slowed down. You get this effect of calmness, something like that, or hallucinating effect. So it's a depressant, right down. It slows down body functions. So that's why for this effect, it is used. It dampens your reflexes. You cannot show reflex. So if a person is high on opioids or on smack or heroin, if you throw that person in the water, that person will just die because that person won't be able to swim and save itself. Save himself or herself, okay? So they are generally taken through either as a dissolved form through injections, or they can also in a powdered form, it can be snorted. So it's a party drug where people want to feel this slow down of their mind and go into that abyss, but it doesn't help, okay? It's not something very cool. Drug abuse among youth is also seen as being cool. You know, I'm partying, so I should doing drugs once or twice. What's the big deal? The big deal is what it's doing to your system, which you don't know. The big deal is that you feel that, you know, you are getting some sense of pleasure, elevation, slowing down, but over time it's affecting. So opioids is clear. Morphine, diacetylmorphine, which is known as smack or heroin, and how it affects.
Yes.
Yep. And it is derived from opium poppy. That's why it's called opioids. So the plant is opium poppy. Now next is another plant which is called cannabis sativa, and this drug category is called cannabinoids. From opium it's called opioids. For cannabis it's called cannabinoids. Now common name for cannabinoids is weed. Okay, so the common terms that you have used is heroin, cocaine, and weed, right? Or marijuana. These are the common terms that we often hear in terms of drug abuse, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So cannabinoids are this weed thing, or charas, ganja. You have heard these words? They are all cannabinoids. So write down, they are a group of chemicals. Now they interact with cannabinoid receptors in the brain, only in the brain. So they interact or bind to cannabinoid receptor. Now, when I say cannabinoid receptor, don't think that these receptors are present in the brain for this function. Our brain knew that someday, you know, people will figure out cannabis and they will start using it. So let me keep these receptors. We know that every harmful substance acts through a pathway. The pathway is normally to bind to something. Now, these receptors were doing normally important things in our body. The good thing of this thing, the good aspect of this thing is that if we did not have these receptors, we could never use painkillers also, right? Painkillers also go and bind to certain receptors in our brain and help us to not feel the pain. Pain can also kill a person. If a person has more pain than it can bear, so the person goes into a neurogenic shock. The brain gets a shock. It cannot handle that much of pain. So even pain can kill someone. So it's very important to relieve the pain after a surgery or something, or in some accident conditions. So painkillers save lives, and they also use the same receptors. But you can also use the same receptor for drug abuse. And they are signaling receptors in our brain cells. Make sense, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yep. Okay, so write down. So they interact with the cannabinoid receptor in the brain, and obtained from flowers, inflorescence of the plant called cannabis sativa. So the plant is cannabis sativa, and the part that is used is inflorescence, tiny flowers. They are dried and used. Okay, so what is used is the flower, leaves, and the resin from this plant, and they are used all different kind of to make all different kind of cannabinoids. For example, marijuana, okay, and hashish. Okay, it's also known as shisha very commonly. Hashish, charas, and ganja. Okay, so these are generally taken by inhalation, like as smoking. Morphine derived were taken by either injections or snorting. They are taken by inhalation. Just know these differences. These can be asked: inhalation or oral ingestion. Okay. Now what do? They affect the cardiovascular system. Okay, cardiovascular system, the heartbeat and the blood flow, they affect that and gives their effect through that. Also in the brain, they make you feel like a feeling of elation, like you are elated, droopy. You don't feel droopy, but sometimes you become more active. So people who actually use these drugs say that these drugs help them being more creative, and they can work better under the effect of these drugs, which is because they can stimulate your brain. Just like about coffee and tea, they have caffeine. You know about caffeine? What does caffeine do? Caffeine is also a drug which is used. It should not be abused.
Yes, sir.
So how does caffeine works?
I don't know how it works, but it is usually it's used by people who want to stay awake.
Yes, if you're feeling sleepy, you just drink coffee, and it can not just stay awake, it also keeps you alert, right? So if you're working late night, or if you want to wake up some extra hours, or in the morning also, if you get caffeine rush, you feel very energetic, you feel like alert. Okay, I can do this thing. This is how it. So it also goes and binds to the caffeine receptors, the caffeine binding receptors, and gives your body the feeling of being more alert. Okay. Whereas there are other things that can put you in sleep, like sleeping pills, exactly opposite of caffeine. They make everything go slow and droopy and drowsy and you sleep. Marijuana has also effects like it can make you more active, and for some people it can, like charas and ganja, can make you more droopy. It depends on the composition. Okay. But it affects the cardiovascular system of the body in a long run. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Now the third one that you have studied is so this plant is clear, cannabis sativa. You have to remember the plants: cannabis sativa for cannabinoids, opium poppy for opioids, and the third category, what was it? We have done this and this, alkaloids. So the third one is coca alkaloids. You have heard the word cocaine, right?
Yes,
It comes
sir.
from coca alkaloids, and the plant which is responsible here is what do you call it? Is a plant, erythroxylum coca. Okay, the plant's name is erythroxylum coca. This is the plant from where you get coca alkaloids. It's commonly known as cocaine. Okay, and this plant is native to South America. Now what it does, it interferes, write down, cocaine interferes, like it does not allow, interferes the transport of dopamine. You know what is dopamine? Anyone knows what is dopamine?
Happy, like it makes us happy.
Yeah, it's a happy hormone, right? We call it.
Yeah.
Dopamine also is a, apart from being that happy hormone, it is a neurotransmitter. Neurotransmitters are chemical which transmit signal between two neurons. Okay, so cocaine is commonly also known as coke or crack, just like smack. Coke or crack are other common names, and they are usually snorted. So cocaine is taken through snorting through the nose, and it affects central nervous systems and makes you very high on energy. Like, you know, dopamine makes you feel very happy and cheerful. If you are playing something which is which you are liking, then the reward pathway, which is um, channelized or regulated through dopamine, gets active, and you feel very good, feel good hormone. Cocaine also acts as a feel good drug. It makes you feel happy and increased energy and euphoria, a sensation of you being happy and on the top of the world. Okay, so cocaine, write down, induces euphoria. Okay, euphoria and increased energy. Everything happens so super fast, you are very happy. It's just opposite of which one? What makes you slow? Heroin. No, heroin. Just above we studied, no? Slows down body functions. It's a depressant, heroin. Cocaine is opposite, increased energy, euphoria. Okay. And if you take excessive doses of cocaine, you get hallucinations. You get so excited and so much energy. So excessive or abuse. So symptoms are, you get hallucinations. You start seeing and hearing what you should not, what's not real, hallucinations. Okay. So there are many such plants other than this coca. Another are called dhatura. You know, dhatura is another plant which comes under cannabinoids. Okay. And these drugs which gives you high energy, increased energy, cocaine, they are also sometimes abused and exploited by a sports person. So you must be knowing about these on the tests that are done, doping tests, right?
Yes, doctor.
Yeah. So they check for these drugs. If you are not taking anything illegal to increase your energy and to be more stimulant and to enhance your performance to win, that's cheating. Okay, you have to compete with your normal physiology, not on drugs. So there are other drugs, right, like benzodiazepines, as I told you, barbiturates, benzodiazepines that help the patient to cope with depression and insomnia. Morphine is in a good term. These are used to also cure some disorders, help in some symptoms. Morphine is an effective painkiller, and if you want to put someone in sedation, in sleep to do a surgery, morphine helps in that. Okay, and but they are misused for these effects. Okay, now about tobacco, we know that tobacco has been around humans. Humans are using tobacco in case of like chewing the tobacco in BDs and cigarettes for a very long time. It has a very long history. You know, even before British, one of the reasons why British came to India, you know, and around the globe, one thing which was very famous was, apart from spices and tea, was tobacco. Okay, so tobacco includes nicotine. Now nicotine is another alkaloid. Just write down. Nicotine is it's not a coming from coca plant, so it's not called coca alkaloid, but it is another kind of alkaloid, nicotine. And it makes you feel stimulated. So nicotine gives you a pinch. It's called nicotine pinch. So it raises your blood pressure, it increases your heart rate, and it increases your blood circulation. So that's why people take nicotine. So smoking a cigarette gives them the feeling of being more active. But over time, your body depends on nicotine to become active. So you get you you know you start feeling the urge of taking all these drugs. Okay. So I am giving you homework stopping here. You have to read page number 159, 160 to, I think, write down. Your homework is to read from NCERT. Page 159 to 163. These 4 pages you have to read and let me know if you have any doubts. Everything that I explained today, something around it is explained here. Okay, everyone?
Yes.
So you have to read this, and before we meet in the next class where we will start the new chapter, I will first take all your doubts if you have any doubts while you read these 4 pages. Okay, the important things I've told you that you have to remember about the 3 kind of plants and 3 kind of drugs that are abused mostly. So these 4 pages have things like why you should not, what is the prevention and control, what you should do. So things that should be done is you have to avoid peer pressure. So mostly kids start abusing drugs because it is a cool thing and you have to follow the trend, be in your peers. So peer pressure, in the peer pressure, they start taking drugs or cigarettes or alcohol. Second thing is education and counseling, seeking help from friends, parents, talk to them. Okay, look for the side effects. Always know that these are going to happen if I take this. Keep reminding yourself. And if you need